His only family were his 2 kids.
I don't have time for this. Go and get your things ready.
But his own greedy best friend tried to kill his each member of family. This demonic betrayal anguished him. So he took a revenge still feared by many. Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. It all kicks off in Berlin, where a fancy car is parked on the side of the road. Meanwhile, the news is buzzing about a recent explosion, saying it's one of several similar blasts in just 1 week, possibly tied to terrorist activities. But all this chaos doesn't seem to bother a guy named Matt Turner. He's too busy with his stock market stuff, working closely with his buddy, Anders, who happens to be the CEO of a big company. Matt's home life? Well, it's pretty rough. He's so caught up in tracking stock prices that he's not really paying attention to his family. Fights with his wife, Heather, are becoming more common. She's mad because Matt is always glued to his phone and isn't even bothered to take the kids, Zach and Emily, to school. The kids have started to distance themselves from him too. Zach, their eldest, especially has lost respect for his dad. Matt's so wrapped up in his world that he doesn't even realize things are falling apart at home. One morning, Matt gets into his car, completely unaware that there's a bomb under his seat. The car's security system starts acting up, but Matt brushes it off as some technical glitch, totally missing the fact that his life and his kids is now at risk. He rushes off to pick up Zach, who's walking to school, and tells him to hop in the car. There's no chit-chat on the drive, just silence as Zach and Emily zone out on their phones, pretty much ignoring their dad. Out of nowhere, a phone rings. Matt asks his kids if it's theirs, but they say no. So he digs around the car and finds a phone in the center console, and it's ringing from an unknown number. Curiosity gets the better of him, and he answers. The moment he picks up, he sees a picture of himself being watched by someone. Panic starts creeping in, and his focus is all over the place. He's so distracted that he nearly crashes into a car stuck in traffic, so he decides to take a different route. The phone rings again, but this time, Matt ignores it. Something's off, so he checks under his seat, finds a bomb. Freaking out but not wanting his kids to know, he puts on a headset and answers the call. The mysterious voice on the other end gives him orders, and Matt realizes someone's been watching him the whole time. He also notices a biker tailing his car and gets suspicious. The caller tells him to toss out his kids' phones, and Matt starts thinking the biker might be the guy behind all this. Matt makes a sharp turn, slams on the brakes, and manages to shake off the biker. Then he gets another message from the mystery man, telling him to head to a specific location. When Matt gets there, he sees Sylvain, one of his clients, who is also being messed with by the same bomber. Things get tense, and it looks like Matt's being set up to take the fall. While they're dealing with this, a cop shows up and asks them to step out of the car. Sylvain refuses, knowing that leaving the car would trigger the bomb. His girlfriend, though, starts panicking and tries to get out despite his warnings. Realizing the danger, Matt quickly takes off, but not before a CCTV camera catches his car. Next, the bomber tells Matt to call Heather. He tries but can't get through, so he calls his friend Christina. She tells him that Heather's at a lawyer's office, working on divorce papers. This news shocks Matt, and his kids overhear, realizing their parents are about to split. Desperate, Matt searches for the lawyer's contact info online, calls him up, and finally gets Heather on the line. He explains everything, but Heather's skeptical at first. Eventually, she agrees to help and heads to AIG Bank to empty the safe. While waiting, Matt has a thought. He mutes his headset and checks the news on his car monitor. Heather soon calls back, and he unmutes to continue the conversation. But just as they reach the bank, the plan changes. The bomber instructs Matt to have Heather hand the money to a guy in a blue suit sitting in a nearby park. Things take an unexpected turn when police, heavily armed, storm the park and arrest the guy in the blue suit. Matt's confused and starting to worry about Heather's safety, but he's stuck, still following the bomber's commands. He drives off, wondering what the heck is going on. Then, the bomber reveals that the whole money thing was just a distraction. The real game is about a dark fund, 208 million euros in investor cash, stashed in a Dubai bank. Only Matt and Anders knew about this, and now it's all coming to a head. Matt was hit with a wave of shock after hearing the news. He couldn't wrap his head around how the bomber knew about the secret fund, which only he and Anders were aware of. Before he could figure it out, another message came through, directing Matt to a new location. It turned out the bomber had planned for Matt and Anders to meet up there to talk about the money stashed in Dubai. Matt arrived at the spot, not far from a train station, and saw Anders' car parked nearby. Anders greeted him, but the look on his face was far from friendly. He was angry, thinking Matt had betrayed him by setting him up with a bomb, just like like what happened to Sylvain. As Matt tried to explain, the bomber forced him to tell Anders to approve the transfer of the entire account balance. With his life on the line, Matt was pushed to threaten his friend, telling Anders that if he didn't make the transfer, he'd be killed. After hesitating, Anders gave in and moved the funds. But Matt's hope that his friend would be spared was crushed. The bomber demanded something far worse. He ordered Matt to kill Anders in exchange for his own life and the safety of his kids. There was no way Matt could do that, especially in front of his children. He refused to pull the trigger. A passing train caused an explosion, killing Anders on the spot and leaving debris that injured Emily's leg. Seeing his daughter hurt, Matt snapped. He told Zach to tie up Emily's wound with a tie, but the sight of her injury made him furious, and he stopped caring about what the bomber wanted. Matt decided to rush Emily to the hospital, but the city was crawling with cops, all on high alert. Meanwhile, the bomber threatened to blow up Matt's car remotely unless he transferred the money to a crypto account. Matt's luck changed when he entered a tunnel, cutting off the signal and preventing the bomb from going off since it needed the connection to the bomber's phone. Heather arrived at the scene, but the police wouldn't let her get close, which left Zach confused as to why his mom couldn't see them. Soon after, a female detective approached Matt and spoke with him. Matt asked if he could talk to Heather, and the detective allowed it. In that moment, Matt apologized for everything, admitting he hadn't been a good husband or father. He promised Heather he would do better and fix their family. With a new sense of determination, Matt began to plan his next move to take down the bomber. But he also knew the detective wasn't going to let him off the hook just yet. They still thought he was behind the bombings. So, he floored it, smashing through the police barricade. The second the signal was back, the bomber called, furious and demanding that Matt immediately sign a transfer agreement. But Matt, now filled with anger and defiance, didn't care. He turned the tables, saying, "If you want the money, meet me in person." The bomber agreed and set up a meeting in a crowded part of the city where a protest was taking place. Shortly after, a masked man climbed into Matt's car and showed him the remote that controlled the bomb. It was clear now that this man was the bomber. Confident, the masked man ordered Matt to drive them out of the busy area. When they reached a deserted spot, Matt was shocked to discover who was under the mask. It was Anders, his best friend. Matt couldn't believe it. Anders had set him up all for the money. Even the explosion near the train tracks, where Anders was supposedly killed, had been a ruse. Anders had carefully planned everything, using the moment the train passed to fake his death. Feeling invincible, Anders played his trump card. He had recorded Matt's voice, threatening to give the recording to the police unless Matt transferred the money. Matt was stunned. The recording was enough to pin the bombings on him. But there was one thing Anders hadn't thought of. They were both in the same car. If it exploded, they'd both die. With no other choice, Matt decided to take a huge risk. He figured dying in the blast was better than being framed for all of this and going to prison. The car was teetering on the edge, and a single move could send it plunging into the river below. Matt saw the remote had slipped and gotten caught on the bridge railing. As Anders reached for it, Matt managed to escape the car and triggered the bomb. This time, Anders was really blown to pieces, while Matt walked away alive. No one knew that Anders was killed by his own bomb, thanks to Zach and Emily's statements, which confirmed that their dad had been threatened and forced by the bomber. Matt was cleared of all charges. Matt later revealed that the 208 million euros had been transferred to the bomber's crypto account, but the nightmare was finally